What's going on, everyone? Today I'm going to be giving you my non-spoiler review for Nobody 2. This is the brand new Bob Odenkirk film. It is a sequel to the first Nobody film, which came out a couple years ago, and I was really looking forward to this film ever since it was announced because I knew that first film really lended itself to a sequel. It made so much sense that it would get a sequel. Honestly, you can do a lot of movies out of this sort of franchise. Very similar to John Wick, but kind of in a more, I don't want to say grounded way, but kind of like more down to earth. You know, he feels a little bit more like a family man. Hutch is, you know, way more relatable to the average person as opposed to someone like John Wick who feels like a god in some scenes, whereas, you know, like I said, Hutch is more down to earth, more grounded, and I really wanted to see more of him, and I'm glad we got this sequel. So let's get to the positives, and then we'll go to the negatives, and then we'll give it a rating out of 10. Starting off with the positives, this movie is insanely fun. It is such a feel-good movie all the way through. I was smiling, I was laughing. Not a single moment of it felt in any way, shape, or form not fun. And that's important. Like this, especially this type of movie, it's important that they really take advantage of just being as fun and crazy as possible. And I felt that way all the way through. It was not a single moment where I was bored or not enjoying it. It really was a good kind of just escapist kind of film that you go see. I really do love the premise of this movie as well. It's obviously taking place after the first one. Hutch is back doing these dangerous missions. He's trying to pay off this debt that he has, and he eventually realizes that he just needs a break from it, so he goes on this vacation with his family, and he just, you know, gets into more trouble there. He's like basically unable to avoid violence and all this terrible stuff. And I like that theme that goes throughout the movie. It's like this character, he's just so unable to avoid violence. It's like his answer to everything is just be violent, and he can't escape it. Even going on a vacation, he just cannot escape it. And with that, of course, the action is the most important thing about this movie, at least one of the most important things, because it is an action film. That is really one of the main things you're going to see this movie for. And the action is fantastic. Just like the first one, the choreography is great. The stunts are great. The like brutality of it, the violence of it, it's all great. It's really solid. I don't think anything lives up to the bus scene from the first movie, though. That to me is like one of the best action scenes of any film ever, and so I don't think this movie is able to live up to that scene, but there are quite a lot of scenes that are still really fantastic. There's one on a boat that I really loved. Even the one in the arcade was a lot simpler, but it was still a really good scene, and the whole final like battle sequence at the end of the movie was also pretty damn good. There's a lot of moments that I think were solid when it comes to how it was choreographed. But what really makes it all work is the set pieces. I think set pieces are one of the most important aspects of an action scene. Obviously, the most important thing being the choreography, but the set piece is so important. That's like the location that it's in. It's the props that they're using. And they do the coolest thing in this movie where it takes place in a theme park. Well, not really a theme park. It's more of like a carnival with a water park. It's like a little vacation spot. And they do so many interesting and fun things with it, especially when they start setting up those traps, kind of like what they did in the first movie where they set up a bunch of the traps in the warehouse. There's a lot of cool traps that you get to see go off in this carnival, and it's incredible. I really loved watching that. There's just so many creative things you can do with that, and I'm really glad they took advantage of it because I love carnivals. I love water parks, and so seeing them in movies is always pretty exciting when you have a whole action set piece centered around one of them. Something I really loved about this movie was the fact that the family got a much bigger role to play in the movie, because in the first movie they were there, but they weren't really in the movie as much. It felt like Hutch was more on his own, but this movie the family actually does play a bigger role. They are there in the action in some of the scenes. Like they actually get some stuff to do themselves because they're on the vacation together. So obviously there's just inevitably going to be more situations where the family is involved. And I really enjoyed that. It allowed all those characters to get more time to shine. And I would say one of the most important aspects of this movie is the relationship between Hutch and Becca. They have a lot more screen time together in this one than they did in the first one. And obviously they were having some relationship struggles in the first film, but they have even more in this one, especially because, you know, she obviously doesn't want Hutch to keep doing these jobs because they're very dangerous. They take up a lot of time. She does not want him being all violent, and you know, even that rubbing off on their son. I mean, even he's now starting to have some violent outbursts here or there, and you know, he means well. He's doing it to protect his sister, but it's in a way that obviously Becca doesn't want. And I like those conversations. I like that conflict side of this movie. Bob Odenkirk is incredible in this movie, as he always is. I really think he's starting to become one of my favorite actors. He's just so great. And in this movie, there's a couple of moments where I actually felt quite emotional just in the way he was performing. Like there's this really emotional part to Hutch's character where he wants to connect to his kids, he wants to connect to his family, but he's not able to do that because he's so involved in these missions he's doing. And there's this really nice moment at the very end of the movie where he's like smiling. I just think it was nice. Like there's a cool aspect to that. He really just wanted to spend time with them, you know, on this vacation. And the fact that things just didn't go as planned, like you could feel the frustration in him throughout the movie. And I really, really loved how he was showcasing that frustration throughout it. Fucking vacation! But there are some negatives. I don't think this is a perfect movie whatsoever. And honestly, I feel like although I enjoyed it quite a bit, I don't think it's as good as the first one. I really wish it was. I went into it really hoping it would be better than the first, and honestly I thought it was going to be better than the first. But there's a few things that held it back from being better than the first one. The first thing is, honestly, it does feel a little derivative of the first film, and obviously it's a sequel. Like I expected it to be kind of similar, and I'm not against it being similar, but it felt like even down to the structure of the film, it was extremely similar to the first one, like so similar. The overall plot, what's happening, obviously, like I said, the things I mentioned that I loved about it, like the set pieces and the family being involved and the whole vacation aspect, like obviously those aspects are new and different, but the overall idea of Hutch getting involved in something that he shouldn't have gotten involved in, and you know, pissing off the wrong person, and then getting stuck in this whole situation where this person now wants to kill Hutch, and now he's in danger and he has to protect himself and his father and his brother, and you know, other people can back him up and help him out, and like there's so many things that just feel so derivative from that first film. And even down to like Hutch and Becca having their relationship issues, yes, it was nice to see that further explored, but it still felt a bit derivative. It felt like we already saw this in the first movie. It felt like I was watching the first movie done again, but in a kind of a different way. And look, like I said, it still was really fun, and there was aspects of that I really enjoyed, but I do wish they found a way to make it feel very different. Like if it had to be the structure changing or something, I don't know, but it felt way too similar for me, at least. And I think I would have been more okay with that if I felt like it did most things better than the first film, but I really don't feel like it did. Like I mentioned before, I don't think the action was better than the first one, even though the action was still pretty good. And I also don't think the villain was better than the first one. I actually think the villains in this were not that great. There was this character named Lindina, played by Sharon Stone, and I wanted to like her because Sharon Stone was killing it. Like she was doing a good job, but like I just couldn't get into the character. I really couldn't, and she just felt so one note. She just kind of like screamed a lot, cursed a lot. That's about it. Like there was nothing to her character. I never really felt that interested in her motivations and what she's doing. Never really cared. That was kind of the point, I guess, but I don't know. I felt like the first film with Yulan, I was like really, really interested in him as a villain. He was really menacing. You really felt his frustration with Hutch and what Hutch was doing to his business. Like that was a really solid villain. This just didn't really feel that way. I didn't really ever buy into Lindina's like care for what was going on. I just never really cared. So I don't know, that didn't work for me. There was also Abel. He was like one of the police officers. I think he was the sheriff. I didn't really care for him either. Like I never really felt like I understood why he cares so much about this. Like he immediately when he met him, he just pissed off at Hutch for like no reason. And it's okay, I don't know, there's no depth to these villains here, I felt like, and I thought that was kind of a shame, you know? I kind of wish they added a little bit more to them. And the last thing I want to point out is the fact that I do think this movie was a little rushed. I felt like the ending especially just came too soon. I needed a little bit more. And I looked at the runtime. The movie's only an hour and 29 minutes. That's crazy short. Like that is insane. And the first one wasn't much longer than that. It was only a few minutes longer, but for some reason it didn't feel as short. I don't really know why. In retrospect, that didn't feel rushed as much as this one did. I did mention that actually after the first one, I did think it was slightly rushed in the end, but this one felt even more. And look, I don't have an issue with an hour and a half movies. I'm totally fine with that. Honestly, I talk to a lot of people who say they miss shorter movies. They kind of like prefer when movies kind of keep things contained. Like a lot of movies back in like the 80s and 90s did that, where they really stuck to being less than 90 minutes. And I guess nobody is trying to do that, because in a lot of ways these movies do feel like 80s action films, and I appreciate that. So maybe they're trying to kind of call back to them by also making them really short. Not all of them are really short, but you know, some of them are. I get it, but I felt like there was a lot going on in this movie. There were so many characters. There's this whole plot line with this character named Wyatt Martin, and to be completely honest, I didn't really think this character needed to be in the movie at all. Like, I was just really looking at the film, there was almost no need for him. There was a kind of an interesting story they did with him and his son, which I don't want to get too in depth with it, because I guess it gets kind of into spoilers, but I did like part of that. But I just felt like you had so many characters in this movie, they were obviously going to end up a bit underdeveloped unless you expanded the runtime a bit. I think you needed at least 10 more minutes to fully develop these storylines, but there was already so much going on. And so either they just were doing too much, or the movie wasn't long enough. I don't know, but I do think it was kind of a problem. Now, for a rating, I'm going to give this 8.2 out of 10. I think it could have been much better if it fixed some of those problems I had, but I still really enjoyed this. I really loved Nobody 2. I loved Nobody, the first one, even more, and I hope to see a Nobody 3 down the line. I think it definitely deserves it, and we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I will see you on my next one. Peace out.